Good afternoon. Good to see you guys. Hello, hello, hello. Good to see you on Instagram. I'm going live. Yeah, there we go. I was about to just check and see what's happening over there on Facebook. Good afternoon. Good to see all of you guys on Instagram, Periscope, YouTube, the whole nine. Thank God for technology. We can knock it out all at once and people don't have to be like, I missed it. Where can I go find that teaching? So good to see you guys. We're actually going to be talking today about capacity, about friendship, about destiny, about purpose, about navigating hard seasons, about what it means to be marked and set apart. So yesterday I put up a post and I'll let people jump on a little bit more. I see everyone coming in from different places that had a lot of feedback on it. And I wanted to expound on that post and really help as many people as I could, because once I read through some of the comments of my post yesterday, a lot of people find themselves in the place that we're going to kind of talk about today. So I wanted to kind of offer some direction, offer some counsel, help, however way I can, some coaching to help you guys just kind of navigate through seasons of hardship. So good to have all of you guys on. I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. Good to see you, all of you guys coming in from Houston and all over. Someone says, is this real live or a replay? It's live. That's why you have the little live buttons there saying it's live. So, all right, let me go ahead and read what I wrote yesterday. Some of you guys saw it. Some of you guys commented. I want us to talk about it today. I said, when marked by God, you must understand friendships will shift. Every stretch in God will require some shedding in the process. You cannot stretch in tight quarters. The perimeters created by others, yourself, and your environment must either expand or bust. When one carries greatness, the environment will have to conform to what they carry, or their strength will do damage to themselves and others around them. When you know God's hand is on your life, it is better to go so you can grow. It is extremely dangerous to keep a God-sized dream confined. So there is a whole mouthful there. So I'm going to kind of break down each part, and then I will take some of your questions. We're still working through the Q&A questions that I had on the Facebook page, but I'll take questions specific to this. So for those of you guys who don't know, I have authored a book called Marked. And in the book, I talk about the makeup and the things that people that are set apart to do great things for God generally go through. And this setting apart is not just for ministry, it's for anything. It's about the Steve Jobs of our generation, or the Nelson Mandelas of the previous generation, or the Mother Teresas. There's many of you guys who have been marked to do something extraordinary. And so the book Marked kind of goes through all of that. And so you can get that book on askdrfaith.com. That is going to be an ebook. If you want a hard copy, you go to Amazon. So this is one of the things I talk about in the book, but I wanted to expand on it. It's really, really normal if you are growing that you either need to be around people that are also growing, or you're going to outgrow them. So a lot of people, and I see this a lot when people come to the Lord when they're younger, or when God, is shifting them, that they face this moment where they have to assess their friendships and their relationships, and the ones that are not going or growing forward, they have to begin to shed. And for people that struggle with things like people pleasing or rejection, or don't have a strong identity, this can be really, really difficult. And so what I have seen coaching and ministry is that a lot of people would rather stay comfortable and confined right, than to actually move forward. So the first area I want to talk about is what it looks like relationally when there is a push or a stretch to step forward or to be released, and then which then in turn causes us to release people and friendships and so on and so forth. So I'm really big on the community. I'm really big on people having friendships and people being normal. I don't like this whole idea where people are like, if you are prophetic, then you don't have a lot of friends. If you are set apart, then you're going to walk alone all the time. I don't agree with that. And I just don't think that it's true. But I do believe that there are seasons in which God will put something on your heart, or God will call you into a place where others won't understand and others won't be able to go. And now this shouldn't be the story of your life. It shouldn't be like, oh, this is my life story. If this is your life story, then the issue is not that it's a season. The issue is that something is going on with you. So one of the things that I teach our mentees in our Destiny Training Academy is that if there is a relational issue, and that same issue comes up with your friends, comes up at work, comes up at church, comes up in your marriage, the issue is not the other people. The issue is you. But if this is a seasonal thing, or once in a while you'll see that the Lord will pull you back, it doesn't mean that you stop going to church, you stop, being in community, but you won't necessarily feel like anybody gets you or anybody understands you. That's normal. People go through that. And so one of the first things you want to do is examine your season of stretching or your season of expansion. Is it self-inflicted, right? Because a lot of times when it is a God season, it's not self-inflicted. It's not something that you did. You didn't blow up at somebody. You weren't offended at someone. You don't know how to talk people correctly. Usually when the Lord begins to call us out from amongst, it's a season in which we don't even want to go. It's a season in which the people may not even have done anything wrong, but there is just this pulling and this urging. And I remember some of my best friends from high school and just growing, and would have conversations, and we were just headed in different directions. And other people who, felt like I was just doing a little too much spiritually, and they weren't comfortable. One of the ways that you're going to know that God is, pushing you and stretching you where relationships may end or break is that it's not really like anybody has done anything wrong, but you just know that you can't stay there. You just know that you can't continue the way that you have continued. It's like the shedding of skin. And so the more you grow and the more you emerge, that's going to happen. It's going to happen even more often if there's a specific calling that's going to require different things. So I remember there was a season when I, stepped out. I was doing a lot of stuff, and my friends, from the previous season, were not comfortable with my growth. They were more comfortable with me being where they were, doing what they were doing. And they actually became very mean, and they, said stuff, wrote stuff. And I had to get to the point of understanding that if I do the introspection, I do the work, I haven't done anything to them, I haven't said anything to them, the issue is not me, the issue is them. And a lot of times when you are growing, when you're going forward, when you're moving in the Lord, what happens is that your growth, causes discomfort around the people around you. And they will begin to be agitated by your development. They'll be agitated by your progress. They'll be agitated by your victories and your success. And if you are not aware of it, you're going to try to make it work. You're going to try to dumb yourself down. You're going to try to, talk it over. But until they deal with their own stuff, it's going to be a waste of energy for you. So there are seasons when friendships shed, and you want to walk with people that have similar vision. They don't have to be like you, but they have similar vision. So that is a normal thing that happens. Is it easy? No. Should you cry about it? Yes, but you shouldn't cry for so long that it prohibits you from moving forward. So I don't want it to seem like it's just like, whatever, get over it. No. It's painful when you lose friendships, when you have to move forward. I remember being part of a church, and one of my college leaders, she said, I sense it. You're getting ready to move. It's not, I loved the church, loved it so much. And she's like, your roots have outgrown this pot. There is no way that where you are going, you can last in this pot. And I remember stepping forward. And what I love about this, when people are spirit filled and they know God, they won't hold you to a certain container or a certain space. And I'm moving ahead. I'm going to hit this in a minute. But I also remember another time when a pastor who I was going to their church and serving and just humbly being there came up to me and said, I don't have in me what you need in order for you to fully emerge. And that is phenomenal for leaders to be able to say, you know what? I don't have the capacity to be able to raise you up. I don't have the capacity to be able to thrust you. I don't have the capacity to be able to push you forward. Because what happens is a lot of us that have mega gifts or are extremely gifted or have a specific calling, because the truth is we want to serve, we are humble, we'll go wherever the Lord calls us to go. You will stay in a place even if you know it's not growing you. And sometimes, and this is not all the time, and not all churches are like this. There are phenomenal churches out there they have what we call this type of church is a church that is a church for all people in all seasons. So there are churches where if you're a babe in Christ, you find your place. If you're growing in the Lord, you find your place. If you've been walking with the Lord for 20 years, you find your place and you're able to find a place to serve. You don't feel thwarted, like you are growing. But there are some, and it is really awesome when the person or the leader can see what is on your life and say, we just don't have it here. And I know some pastor friends, and we try to do this at Legacy as well, is we try to import anointings, right? Sometimes it's not that just because they don't have it there, you got to pick up a move, but the leader should think and say, okay, well, maybe we can move this, bring someone in to teach in this area since I don't teach on it, or I can bring this into this area since the people want to grow in that area. But if you don't recognize when you have outgrown a space, it will be detrimental for you and for other people. So I was trying to break down everything that I said yesterday in my post, that every stretch in God will require shedding in the process. It's just like being a little kid. Right now, my kids are at the age where every age I'm buying new clothes. Like the clothes from last season just don't fit. And some of us will go through those seasons of extreme growth, seasons of when you're coming into information you didn't know before, and what you wore last season is just not going to fit. And you can say, well, I don't want to keep buying new clothes and go out there looking ridiculous, or you could try to stay small. Right? But either staying small or growing, either of them is going to be hard. Either of them is gonna put pressure on you. So you just have to be aware that if you're gonna go from glory to glory, if you're gonna grow in God, there's always a season of shedding. And the shedding is not always people. Sometimes the shedding is wrong ideas. Sometimes the shedding is bad theology. Sometimes the shedding is misconceptions that we had about people. But we should be people that are evolving and are growing in God, because if we're not growing, then we're dead. And everything that is in Christ not only grows, but it multiplies. So you want to be aware of every season that you're in, assessing what is it that I'm supposed to be shedding. For some, it might be physical weight. For some, it might be a bad attitude. For some, it might be complaining. For some, it might be friendships. For some, it might be that knucklehead you've been with for 7 years and they're still not proposing, right? Whatever it is, every season there's a level of shedding. You cannot stretch in tight quarters. It is what it is. And so when you are beginning to recognize what you carry, who you're called to be, and what you're called to do, and this can be at work, this can be at church, you have to assess the place in which you're growing. When I was preparing for this, I was thinking about Abraham and how the Lord just told him to pick up and pack up and go, and I will show you the land. And if you look throughout scripture, you will find that many times there's instruction to move from one place to another place. And the reason for that is that destiny is connected to a location. Your destiny is tied to a location. It can be a job, it can be a city, it can be a church, it can be a country. And there are certain things that one location can give you that others may not be able to give you. And so one of the things that people ask me a lot about is, when do you know it's time to move? Well, when you're not being fruitful. when your job is not fruitful, when your relationships are not fruitful, when spiritually you're not being fruitful, when you don't feel righteousness around you, like when you're not growing in God, when you're not being challenged, when you're not becoming a better version of yourself. That is probably a clue that it's time to stretch, right? When you don't feel the joy of the Lord anymore in whatever capacity. And I'm not just talking about 1 week you don't feel the joy of the Lord, so you pick up a move. I'm talking about maybe 4 or 5 months you've been trying to make it work. You've been trying to, fit within that mold or within those parameters, and there's no level of joy. There's no grace. There's no anointing. There's no level of righteousness. It might be a clue. And sometimes it's just that the place doesn't have the information you need to emerge. A lot of times people will be afraid about their purpose and their destiny. And I tell them that it's because you don't have the right information. Location holds information. Specific locations hold information. And so there are seasons in which the reason you're not growing, the reason you're not moving forward is you're in a location that lacks the information to thrust you forward. Now, the amazing thing about technology and these days is that there is excess of information. Everybody is going live. Everybody's writing a book. There are so many free courses from Harvard to Cornell to wherever. So the other issue might be that you have the information, but you don't have proper application, which is wisdom. So a lot of people have information, but a lot of people don't have wisdom. Wisdom is the proper application of knowledge or information. And so you could be in a place where you're getting a lot of information, but you're not getting the tools on how to apply it. And what's going to happen is that you're just going to grow fat. You're not going to grow deep, right? In the spirit realm, you're just going to grow wide. You're not going to have the roots to be able to anchor you to be able to grow and move forward. So you got to be mindful of the environments. And sometimes that environment is just about you reading more. It's about maybe attending a conference or a training. It doesn't necessarily mean picking up and moving to another place, but it might be the place that you're in, right? The parameters created by others, this is in the post, by others, yourself or your environment must expand or bust. Sometimes the restrictions that we feel on our lives are restrictions we have created. They don't have to do with the pastor. They don't have to do with your job. They don't have to do with the husband that you married or the wife that you have. You have created your own parameters about who you are, what you should be doing, and where you should be going. And oftentimes those parameters are connected to what we think, how big our thought is, how big we view the world, how big we understand God to be. We create limitations in our thinking, and therefore we cannot break through. So one of the things that you have to challenge is your thinking and the limitations. So those of you guys who signed up for our VIP session for our Pioneers Conference in 2 weeks, this is some of the things that we're going to hit, dealing with mental limitations about how we see ourselves, about how we see God, so that we can push forward, so that we can pioneer, so that we can build what God has called us to build. So when you begin to feel the agitation, because you will feel it, when you're outgrowing a space, you will feel irritated. You will feel agitated. You will feel discontented. You won't have contentment. The first thing that you want to ask is this connected to thoughts that I've had? Do I have limitations that I have created about who I am, who God has called me to be, and what God is calling me to be? The next thing is if you're like, no, I'm really clear. I'm supposed to own a business. No, I'm really clear. I have seen this over and over that I'm supposed to help people, but there's just something else. Then you need to assess your relationships. That's the next level, right? So are there relationships that are hindering me from going forward? And usually when they're hindering you from going forward, it's not like they're saying, stop, don't do it. Don't do it. That's not what is happening. What is happening is that you're believing their truth about you more than God's truth about you. When you experience limitations because of people, it's because you believe their truth about you more than God's truth about you. And so what does that mean? You got to know what God's truth is, right? If you don't know how God communicates with you, if you don't know how the plans that God has for your life, you're going to believe every single thing everybody else says. Oh, you should be a dancer. Oh, you should be a scientist. Oh, you should quit that job. Oh, you should leave this person. So it is really, really important to shut some people's voices out. I remember when I was launching my business and, I had gone to school to get a doctorate in clinical psychology. And the Lord was saying, don't go that route. I've called you to work for me. And everybody had something to say about it. And luckily for me, it was still very hard, but I was so clear that I could not do what I was made to do if I was working for somebody else, if I was limited in how I helped people spiritually. I knew that I had to step out and do something that had never been done before. But a lot of the limitations that we experience because of people, it's because we're worried more about their expectations of us than God's expectations of us. We're worried more about their expectations of us than God's expectations of us. So you have to be mindful of the voices and the people. Not everybody can see what you carry, and don't be mad that they can't see it. Everyone's not going to be able to see the treasures in you. Everybody's not going to be able to see the pearls in you. A lot of people, I'm sewing into this word. Thank you. I'll give you my Square Cash at the end. A lot of people get caught up worrying about people's perception of them, which then limits them from going forward. So you've got to deal. I remember there was a season in ministry when the Lord said, I need you to shut down all these places, all these different things that you're doing. And we need to talk about expectations, because at this point, you're operating out of expectations of men than my expectations for you. And guess what, guys? Those things were good. People's lives were probably going to be changed. There was probably going to be breakthrough. But just because it has worked in the previous season doesn't mean you're still in alignment with what God is expecting you to do in this year. So parameters, limitations can be shaped by your thoughts, what you think and what you believe about yourself, others, and God. Parameters can be shaped by other people's expectations of you, what others have said. They can be shaped by your family. The limitations that your families have. If you grow up in a family, this was really huge because Africans, they're going to be either engineers, lawyers, doctors, professors, and they're going to work 9 to 5. And so when my dear husband was trying to explain to some of our African family that I don't work 9 to 5, that I'm an entrepreneur, they're like, but she has a doctorate, but she doesn't work 9 to 5, right? And so sometimes the dreams of our families are too small for what God has put in our lives. And a lot of people make decisions about career, about how far you can go in God based off of history. Right? So they said, this is what we have always done, or this is what I've known women to do. I've never known a woman to be able to do this. I've never known a man who has been able to step out and be able to start his own thing. And so you can have family history become a limitation to your ability to break through. These are all parameters, and you got to learn how to bust through them, especially if you feel a mandate to do something extraordinary that has never been done before. And then you have parameters that are not necessarily people, but it's literally the place, right? And so some parameters that limit us are people, relationships, family, friendships, and sometimes it's the place that we're in. There are certain areas where poverty is so present there that nobody can think. One of the things that the poverty spirit does is it aborts your ability to dream. So we're getting ready to do our Wealth Transfer Academy, which helps people launch their businesses and books and all of that. The first class that we deal with is breaking the poverty spirit, because you cannot make money and keep it if you have a poverty spirit. I didn't say you can't make money. You will be able to make money, but you won't be able to keep it, and you won't be able to build a legacy of God in the earth if you have a poverty spirit. So there are regions where there's certain limitations based on permission that has been given to the enemy. So maybe you grew up in a place where all the girls got pregnant before 16. Maybe you grew up in a place where all the men just worked, in one particular job. Maybe you grew up in a place where women couldn't do certain things. Maybe you grew up in a place where the men all they could do was, get married quickly and have babies. Whatever the geographical locations are of where you are, you need to examine them, because those can have an input on your life and on your destiny, even if you don't know it. My husband is a great example of this. He always knew he was going to be in America. Before he met me, he was applying to universities and all of this stuff, but he grew up in Nigeria, and all y'all been praying for Nigeria. Thank God, right? But there is so much corruption, and it's geographical and it's spiritual, that for a person to be able to break through, it requires so much tenacity. And I know I've got some Nigerians watching right here, right? Some of you guys may be first generation, some of you may be second generation. And this is not just for Africans, it's for islanders, Asians. What they have to do in order to get to the place that they're in is push through geographical limitations. That's why when they get to America, they don't play. You know, they get here and they're working 3-4 jobs because they knew how hard it was to find a job in the geography that they were in. Some of us were born and raised here, and we can't just make a choice about what we're going to do because there's too many choices. Some people didn't have all those choices. So sometimes your environment can limit you. And we as pastors have noticed this, that sometimes having too many choices and the freedom of America limits a lot of people. It causes them to go around in circles because one week they could be a hairdresser. The next week they want to be a teacher. The week after that, they want to be an engineer, and they just cannot make a decision. So you've got to be cognizant of your environments. Environments can help push you. They can help take you to the next level. Environments can also cause you to be thwarted because your thinking has not expanded and you're not able to go to the next level in that. All right, I'm going to take some questions from you. Let me just wrap up with this. So you want to be careful of the parameters that you have created. When one carries greatness, their environment will either have to conform or they will conform to that environment. There are amazing people out there that have been pushing in different countries, even here in America, that have been pushing, but because their environment was so difficult, they just began to believe that maybe the dream was too big. Maybe they didn't have it in them. And so what's going to happen when you're in an environment is either you're going to conform to it or you're going to bust through it. You're going to say, no, I know there's got to be more. I know my family has never seen this, but I've got to push. So one or two things happens when you don't leave an environment that you have outgrown. After time, the environment either causes you to kind of buckle underneath it, or you're going to bust through it. Now, this happens a lot when God tells people to leave a job, when God tells people to even leave a church, right? Which if you've watched my videos, I'm not big on just picking up and leaving churches, right? But what happens is if you have not dealt with what God is wanting you to do. So for example, let's say he wants you to leave a job, right? And you're like, no, I'm comfortable here. I make 6 figures and I don't think I'm supposed to leave this job and start a new job or start entrepreneurship or whatever. What usually happens is that God will tell you it might be several years, it might be several months. And then things will begin to happen in that environment. So that environment thrusts you out. So an example of that is like Moses, right? He was cool. He was in the palace. He had heard of the atrocities that was happening to the Israelites, and it was happening. But there came a point where he hit like a threshold, and he ended up killing the Egyptian that had had the altercation with the Israelites. What happened at that point is that the system kicked him out. The system literally booted him out. So what happens a lot of times when you have great destiny, and sometimes you don't know it's happening. Sometimes nobody told you to move or anything, but all of a sudden you're like, how did I lose that job? Or why am I not at that church anymore? Why were they talking about me like that? Why did I lose those friendships? Because the Lord will allow things to happen in order to thrust you out of an environment so that you can be made out of that place of pain. I don't have time to teach this, right? I'm working on a book that probably ain't gonna be done till next year about dreamers and visionaries. But when we're boosted out of that environment, it causes us to struggle. And the most important thing is that your pain is not useless. When you suffer, when you're hurting, when you're dealing with rejection or betrayal or being kicked out or whatever, your job is to bring that back to the presence of God so that God can make something out of it. Joseph went through this for so long. Here's God, finds himself in a pit, out of the pit, finds himself in a nice house, out of the house, finds himself in a prison, because Psalms tells us that the word of the Lord has to be tried in your life. And part of that word being tried in your life is your ability to believe God despite of friendships, despite of relationships, despite of jobs, despite of your environment. So I'm going to stop there for now. I'm going to take some questions from you guys. Yes, I wanted the book to be done this year, but with COVID and me teaching my kids at home, it just didn't happen. But we're working on it. So hopefully by next summer, I will have the next book on the prophetic process and emerging as a visionary or leader that God has called you. For those that wanted to give, my Square Cash is just Faith Wolkema, my first name and last name. So I put it there. You can whatever. And then the announcements that we have coming up. So our Pioneers Conference is in 2 weeks. We're going to talk about all this stuff because it's about developing and launching out into who God has called you to become. If you want to be in the virtual VIP session, we close that out Saturday night. And if you want to sign up for regular virtual attendance, that closes Saturday night as well. After that, it's late and it's all virtual. You can watch it from anywhere in the world. It's pioneerconference.org. So you can register for that. And I mentioned our wealth transfer class is opening up. You can get on the wait list for that. And that's where we teach people how to create 6-7 figure products and businesses so that they can finance the kingdom of God and break bondages over their family. What do you do if you were prophesied to be in church I'm not growing in? Every prophecy is not just for you to take and run with. And maybe that prophecy worked for the season that you were in, right? And I was actually getting ready to make a whole long post of all the pastors I've ever had in my life, because even if you were only there for a short bit, there's something that you could gain from everywhere. Even there was a point that you were growing. There was a point where it was a blessing, right? And so that season may have passed. So you need to assess and see, where am I? Is it still working? All right. Awesome teaching. Thank you. I've been feeling boxed in. I've been feeling like I need to bust a move for some time now. Well, bust a move. What do you do when you're clear in your purpose and have walked in it for years, but are now burnt out? Pivot. That's another thing we're going to be teaching at the VIP for Pioneers. How do you pivot? A lot of people had to pivot this year. 2020 was the year of the pivot. You've got to know that your purpose is to love God, serve him through your gifts and your talents, right? And that may look like one way for 20 years, and God may switch your assignment, right? Because your assignment is how your purpose manifests. I don't have time to teach on this today, but your assignment may switch and then you go forward in something. So don't be afraid. Give yourself permission to change your mind and give yourself permission to switch. Question: how can you learn acceptance to move forward? Who are you trying to get acceptance from? So as believers, the only person really who should matter is the Lord. Like, our validation first has to come from God. We have to know that we are loved by him, we are called by him, and we're accepted in the beloved. Once you are firm in that, then you will celebrate those people that accept you and you will bless those that don't. But the problem is that when we're looking for validation and acceptance from people, that carries more weight than the validation and acceptance from God. That has to do with understanding who you are as a son. It has to do with breaking the orphan mindset. I have lots of videos on that on YouTube. And when you are clear about that, you don't worry so much about who's accepting you and who's not accepting you. I've never received a prophetic word. How do you have instructions with no one, I guess, talking? So you have the word of God. The word of God can speak to you. You want to get in environments where prophecy flows, right? Different conferences, different events, hopefully a church, right? If no one is imparting to you, ask the Lord to reveal people who can impart to you. But your mentors don't always have to be present. A lot of people call me their mentor because they watch me on YouTube, right? And a prophetic word doesn't just have to be a word with your name on it. It could be a word that has to do with your circumstance or your life. And you can take that word and you can run with it and apply it to your life. Our conference is just called Pioneers Conference. I think someone had put world something. No, it's Pioneers Conference, and it's pioneersconference.org. In the description, there's the link for you to register. How do you get the prophetic into our kids? I'm going to do a whole seminar in the spring on that. I don't have time to teach on it today because that's not what I'm talking about, but I will do a whole, we have a Raising Supernatural Kids conference that we do that will be virtually accessible. So you'll be able to do that. Let's see. Do you think you should join a church if your husband doesn't have the opportunity to choose the church with you? My husband is in prison right now. Yes. I mean, hopefully he's attending whatever services they have in church. But yeah, go to a church that you love. And when he comes out, then you guys can talk about if that works for you guys as a couple. So I would, yes, please. Question: when is the Wealth Transfer Academy? It starts in January. The info is in the description. You get on the wait list. Registration opens next week. Okay. You are really teaching this. Thank you. Let's see. It's working for your good. Question. Alrighty. Let me see you on Instagram here. Okay. What if your leaders are not imparting or cultivating you in your new season? Well, if you go to church on Sunday, whatever your preachers are preaching, they're imparting, right? If you go to Bible study, whenever they preach, they're imparting. So if you need specifics, then you need to communicate that to them, and they may not be the ones who do that. They may recommend someone else in the church. But there's certain things that pastors do that is not their responsibility, or certain things that we ask for that is not the pastor's responsibility. So you need to ask, what do I need in this season, and where am I supposed to get it? But if you're part of a church and you're watching or attending on Sundays, and or whatever day they do Bible study or cell groups, they're imparting, right? And if you're not growing, then you may need to assess what that means. All right. When is the Dreamers and Seers Club coming back? We'll open that up in February. So for those that want to grow, it's actually going to be a lot in the prophetic and Dreamers and Seers. We're going to open that back up in February. Let's see questions. If you have a question, put #Q. Do you have any book recommendations for transitioning well, new location? I don't from the top of my head, but I have a whole recommended books tab on my website, askdrfaith.com. Would you say good health insurance is good reason to wait to be a full-time entrepreneur? You want to wait because you're waiting for, it depends on how sick you are, right? But there is options there for entrepreneurs, because I am one. So there are options for entrepreneurs on health insurance. So that's some of the stuff we'll cover in our Wealth Transfer Academy as well. Let's see. If you have a question, put #Q. What do you do when you're clearing? Okay, we have answered that. How to shift geographically through opposition. The place I'm in is dried out and depleted. Well, what is the opposition, right? What I tell people is apply for a job in the city that you want to live in. Start there, right? See if that door opens. Once you get a job, then you can begin to look for housing and so on and so forth. So I'm not sure what the opposition looks like for you. What if your church does not have a prophetic voice? I mean, I don't know what to tell you, but there are a lot of trainings and resources. We provide them at AskDrFaith.com, and you just look for those if your pastor lets you, because some pastors don't want you to learn from anybody else, and I ain't got time for that. But you make a decision about where you can get the extra training. Any specific dates for your coaching and mentoring program? That's always in May. So are you talking about the our Destiny Training Academy, or to be certified as a coach? For those that want to join our mentorship program, that's going to open up in January. For those that want to be certified as coaches and all of that, that opens up in February. As an apostle by office, would you say you had to learn to be pastoral? What does that look like? So I'm a prophet by office. I was a prophet first. I'm a prophet apostle, or an apostolic prophet, but I'm a prophet all day long. And yes, I had to learn a little bit of being pastoral. And it helped because I learned like what my temperament was and what my strengths are and my weaknesses are. But when you learn to see people the way God sees them, it's really easy to love them. It's really easy to forgive. And so you have to intentionally begin the journey of learning to see people the way that God sees them. So this is another good time to plug in our fivefold school that's coming up in August, where we'll cover like if you're called to be a prophet, apostle, teacher, and all of that. But it's just learning the areas of your weaknesses and asking Holy Spirit to grow you. All right, let me take 2 more questions and I'm out of here. Is it demonic to dream loved ones who have died? It could be, but I'm not talking about dreams today. So I won't go too much into that, because once I start talking about dreams, it opens up a whole can of worm. If you're still in the grieving season, the first year or so, it's your soul saying that you miss them. But if they're giving you messages and visiting you, that is probably a familiar spirit. How to know what to do with your talents? I mean, that could be a lot. You could also join our DTA, our mentoring program, because they're coached through all of that. But I have a book on my website, and you can get a coach that can help you to work through some of those things as well. How do you know to move forward with your business when you're in a season where it seems there's so much going on, so many obstacles? Mother passed in May from COVID. I'm having a difficult time. I'm sorry about your loss. And in business, sometimes you have to take a break. And sometimes you got to keep going despite what's happening. So you need to assess your needs. You need to assess your market and all of that, which we'll cover in the Wealth Transfer Academy. Feeling irritated with surrounding, like where I live. We've been being patient and hate my surroundings. What to do? My family has, I can't, cut me off. Well, are you working? Are you in school? What are your plans for your future? Sometimes you got to work and stay in a place until you can save up enough to pick up and move elsewhere. So you got to come up with a plan of how you're going to shift where you're at. Thank you. I had a vision. You had a very state of the art university, written faith university. Thank you. And that word is actually right on. We just got that same prophetic word 2 weeks ago from our friend Zenzo Montega, but we do have a passion and a heart and a vision to one day have a full-blown university. So that's right on. Thank you for that. What should you do if your husband isn't growing spiritually and doesn't desire to? Just love on him, bless him, be you, and be godly, be kind, focus on the reasons why you married him, focus on the seasons where he was growing. He may be going through depression, he may be having a hard time. Just don't nag him, right? Pray for him in the secret place, and there is so much that God can do in that place. All right. I took her coaching. You should invest in it if you want to be a coach. Thank you, Vanessa. What do you do when you're told you're prophetic by other prophets and pastors, but I don't know where to start with this calling as where I should be doing? Well, one, you could join our Dreamers and Seers Club, and then you can join our Fivefold School, which trains prophets. That's coming up in August. But you can read books. If you're like, Dr. Faith, I don't want to give you no money. I don't want to be trained by you, right? I have a recommended books tab on AskDrFaith.com. Start reading and get as much training. I have a lot of free training on the prophetic. Study your assignment, study your calling before you step into it. What do you do if your husband doesn't support your business? Well, what should you do if you have, and this is the same person who asked the other question. So you guys have a lot of things going on there, right? It's not just about they're not spiritual or they don't support your business. There's some deep rooted issues. So you probably need some counseling. We do have a marriage retreat coming up this February, but we're only taking like 20 to 25 couples. So I'll let you guys know after we've let those that are on our mailing list know, but you probably need to go do some counseling and work out the deep-seated stuff that's really going on, that's causing him not to be supportive, not spiritual, and all of that. But if you know your business is succeeding, you better keep working. All right. Bless you guys. Okay, how does one truly know that they are anointed to do? Well, because people tell them. People tell them, when you do that, I feel amazing. Or when I eat your cupcakes, they're really good. Or when you pray, I experience breakthrough. Or when I get counsel from you, my life changes. So you know what you're anointed to do. One, because there is fruit, right? People can tell you that you actually do it well. Two, there's joy. When you're doing it, it gives you, empowers you. It gives you life. It takes you to the next level. Dr. Faith, you train on dreams interpretation for seers. Yes, we train dreamers and people that have visions. If you believe you're already a seer, the School of the Prophets will be the best route for you. Will there be another coaching and mentoring class? Yes, it's every May. All right. We need to register. That's right. All right. Bless you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Share this with your friends. If it was impactful, if it was helpful, please, please, please share it with your friends. We just actually, someone's asking about deliverance ministers. We just put together a list because we just did a class on inner healing and deliverance. At some point, we're going to put it on my website because people ask me about deliverance ministers all the time. I'm going to put their names on there. We got to get their permission first. And you can access them. All right. I would invest in you guys. Oh, I would invest, guys. It will be worth it. Thank you so much. All righty. I think there's one last question that snuck in here. If you come to realization that you're a dreamer and have a prophetic dreams and are suddenly bombarded with demonic dreams, the enemy is trying to shut out that realm so that you're afraid. So get in the Dreamers Seers Club so you can grow in that area. Bless you guys. Talk to you soon. I look forward to seeing some of you at the Pioneers Conference. A lot of you guys are going to be on site, and the rest of you guys are going to be virtual. So I look forward to meeting you and seeing you. I won't be able to hug you, but I'll give you a good fist bump and 6 foot love, social distance love. But we look forward to seeing a lot of you guys there. All right. Bye-bye.